welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Shirley Min and Mark Eichman. First-time drunk drivers could be forced to get an ignition lock for their cars under a new law in Delaware. We'll tell you more in just a few moments.
Governor Markell talks about bills that passed and some that didn't as we sit down with him for a look at Delaware's future.
And basic training at Dover Air Force Base gets a reboot with Operation Dorm to Gorm. The new program on base gets airmen ready for combat in the kitchen. We have the best of Delaware, too. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Delaware isn't waiting around for those who drive under the influence of alcohol to become repeat offenders. Delaware will join 22 other states, which will force every person caught driving under the influence to use a special device in their vehicles. First Look reports on the move to strengthen Delaware's DUI law in an effort to protect everyone on the road.
First-time offenders account for about 70% of our DUI arrests in Delaware.
But that could soon change now that the state plans to aggressively go after those first-time offenders who drive under the influence of alcohol with House Bill 212. The bill will not only continue to force repeat offenders who account for 30% of DUI arrests, but all offenders to get this device installed in their vehicles.
Ignition interlocks provide that level of protection to everybody else, that if you've been a drunk driver, you won't be a drunk driver again.
According to AAA officials who support the bill, accident statistics show drunk driving unfortunately continues to plague the state.
It's far too high. I mean, this is a simple thing that we should be able to stop as a society. We believe this piece of legislation is one way to accomplish that.
Block Communications, a Pennsylvania company, already installs devices weekly in Delaware for repeat offenders as well as those who refuse to take a chemical test.
This is the Draeger XT ignition interlock. Allows us to take a breath sample before we start the car, making sure that it's a 0.0 tolerance so we can actually start the car safely. We have found throughout the time it's saved many lives and stopped a lot of people from drinking and driving.
The devices even include multiple safety features for people who think they could beat the testing instrument. However, in addition to first-time offenders who will be required to use the ignition interlock device for a minimum of 4 months, there is one age group the state is really trying to target.
Surprisingly enough, the highest group of individuals arrested for a DUI are between the ages of 35 and 44. So we're not looking at a really young population. We're looking at our experienced drivers and our drivers who have been around for a while.
These units cost Delaware drivers a monthly rental fee of at least $70, an expense officials say can never be compared to someone's life.
Currently for 2014, 26% of the fatalities this year have been alcohol related, and we've had 65 fatalities.
Fortunately, over the years, the state has seen a slight decrease in drunk driving, even though these days officials say they're now seeing something just as dangerous that people should be more mindful of.
When people are arrested for a DUI and they get tested, their BAC gets tested, 59% were higher than a 0.13. Again, the legal limit is 0.08, so you're almost doubled. So we're seeing a lot of really high BAC levels when people are getting arrested for DUI.
Statistics show the highest time for those DUI arrests is typically between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., and there are often mixed reviews when this device comes into play.
We do find some that understand the need for the equipment, but we also have some that are a little resistant. But to get their license back, then they need to follow and comply with the laws.
One thing is certain, the hope for these devices is to help reduce DUI arrest rates, recidivism, and encourage safe driving habits.
Probably one of the most important things about this legislation is the ignition interlock still allows people to drive for work or family related. It just takes away the problem of them being a drunk driver and being a danger. So people are able to get on with their lives, hopefully in a productive manner, and not let this destroy their work life or their family life.
The bill hasn't been signed just yet. Before Governor Markell puts his signature on this piece of legislation, officials are looking over what it will cost the state if it fits in the current state budget, since it would require more staff to run the program. Currently, the law only requires first-time offenders arrested with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.15 or higher to get the device.
And of course, there's always a cost attached to these devices in this type of a program. Even if it claims to save lives, it comes at a cost. So what is the cost to the state for this?
Mark, the program actually, I'm told the program will roughly cost $250,000 for the first year, and after that, about $150,000 for subsequent years to run the actual program.
So is there a chance this bill won't go into law or be delayed in implementation?
Well, we're still waiting to find that out, but I will tell you this, the Office of Highway Safety, they plan to continue on with education, enforcement, checkpoints, anything to just encourage people to not drink and drive.
All right, and we can ask the governor about it coming up in the next segment. Thanks, Nichelle. You can read more about this story when you visit newsworks.org/Delaware. We are now 2 weeks into Delaware's new fiscal year, and it's time to look back on the past legislative session with Delaware Governor Jack Markell. He is our first person this week. Governor, welcome.
Thank you.
Governor, were you satisfied with how things went this session?
I thought we made very good progress. We did a lot around economic development. The downtown development districts was something that was very important to us. Workers' compensation reform. The tax credit for research and development focused on small business, as well as the cybersecurity initiative. So a lot around economic development, a lot around workforce development, and a lot around criminal justice reform. So it was a productive session. Didn't get everything done that I wanted, particularly around investments in transportation and water. But overall, it was a productive session.
It seemed like heading towards June 30th, every meeting that DFACT had to estimate the revenue for the state, it seemed like they chipped away at what was expected to come in. Did that sort of limit what you were able to get done in a way?
Oh, it definitely limited it. And I think the Joint Finance Committee, as well as the General Assembly overall, did a good job in a really, frankly, pretty challenging budget climate. But we got it done. And in addition to the budget, which is really obviously incredibly important, we got a lot of good legislation done too.
Now, you touched on it earlier, the gas tax and the water tax are two big initiatives that you had touted from the beginning of this year. They never even made it into bill form. Why, in your opinion, did they both fail?
Well, I think first of all, the good news is now people are talking about it. I obviously wish that it had gone further, but I think in terms of, I think people really understand now the importance of investing in our transportation system as well as in water. I think in election year it was tough. Frankly, they just did not want to take these things on. The problem is everybody says, okay, well, we ought to invest in transportation. We ought to clean up the water, but nobody wants to pay for it. But that's not the way the real world works. And so, but in the end, they're going to have to be done. And, what form that takes, we'll have to see. In
hindsight, should you have brought in lawmakers ahead of your State of the State, given them a heads up, given it is an election year? Well, looking back, should you have done that?
I mean, a couple things. I sat down with pretty much every lawmaker, and it's just something that I do during the spring. I literally bring in either individually or in groups of 3 or 4. So sat down with everyone, talked to a lot of their constituents. I think in the end, maybe an election year, it was just difficult for them to accept.
So obviously these will be things that you'll be pushing for once the election happens in November in the next session.
Well, the issue is, I mean, the roads need to be improved. And, the bridges need to be, continued to be improved as well. So, I mean, it's not like these issues go away. In addition, these initiatives, these investments would have created thousands of jobs. So, again, I wish that they had gone further this time. They didn't, but it's not like these problems go away.
And on the roads, it was sort of a big picture solution that would have set the state up for road funding for several years into the future. Was it too big of a swing?
I don't know. I mean, it's like compared to what? I mean, the bottom line is Pennsylvania is now, they passed a gas tax increase. They're going to be around 60 cents a gallon Maryland passed a big increase. They're going to be at 43.5 cents a gallon. My proposed increase was from 23 to 33 cents. That being said, I have been very clear from the beginning, I am interested in seeing the investments take place. If people have a better idea about how they can be funded, I'm certainly open to hearing those ideas.
Personally disappointed in two of these were really your biggest initiatives.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think they were certainly, I think they're important initiatives for the state. But I mean, in terms of my areas of focus, big chunk on workforce development. If you go back to my State of the State speech, which is when I first mentioned these, huge chunk on workforce development, big chunk around economic development more broadly, as well as criminal justice reform. You know, in terms of these particular proposals, it's really less about me, and it's more about my concern that our neighboring states, our competing states, are finding the way to make these big investments, and I think it's not a great thing for Delaware to be left behind when other states are making investments and we're not.
Did 495 help you?
I don't know. I mean, I think that was, you know, it's obviously that was a one-off where the Department of Transportation working as quickly as possible to get that reopened.
Looking at another issue that got a lot of headlines, help for the casinos, $10 million in a little bit of a split on the vendor fees for slots. How long can the state keep going to help out the casinos? When does it come to a point where this is what we're going to get? And
well, I mean, first of all, I think you have to, I'm not even sure that that's the right way to think about the question. The bottom line, I think a lot of people don't understand this, is that the casinos have long been partners with the state. And if you take a look at the revenues that fund the state's budget, a significant chunk come from the casinos. And the fact is the dynamics of that industry, the competitive dynamics have changed considerably since they started, with new competition in Maryland and new competition in Pennsylvania. So I do think we have to focus on how we reduce reliance on that particular revenue source. But it's also very true that they have been major contributors to revenues that fund education, that fund the environment, that fund the police, lots of things within the state budget.
A reduction of reliance on the casinos, would that mean a lowering of the tax revenue, or?
You know, I think, well, what you're seeing in any case in the meantime is that you've seen a lowering of revenue, mainly because of competition. What we want to make sure is we want to do what we can to make sure that they can continue to be competitive so that they continue to be a major employer in our state.
Elections in November, I'm sure you're watching the Attorney General's race. Let's say Matt Denton obviously succeeds and does well. Are you going to be without a lieutenant governor, or how is that going to play out?
Assuming that he wins, which I think he will, then the way the law works is there will not be a lieutenant governor for a couple of years. And he's been, I will miss him because he's been extremely helpful. He's always been at the important budget meetings and other important considerations in the administration.
And Beau Biden, did you know he was going to run in 2016? Did you have an idea?
I wasn't totally surprised. You know, something that I had heard some things about. We haven't talked a lot about it directly, and my guess is after 2014 elections, maybe we will. But he'd certainly be a very strong candidate and could be very effective.
Back to the end of the session, you have, I guess, a lot of signing to do over the next couple of weeks. Things that got passed that you may or may not sign. Some
of the bills I'm signing around criminal justice reform, I think, are really important. In terms of others, I look forward to sitting down with my staff to review them.
Is and we featured earlier in the show the DUI.
Ignition interlock.
Right.
Right.
Is that something that?
That's a bill that I plan to sign. I haven't spent a lot of time on it yet, but I did meet with the folks from MAD a couple of months ago, along with Representative Keeley, and I think that bill makes sense.
Delaware Governor Jack Markell, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you for being here on First.
Thank you.
You can watch all of this interview when you click on the first person drop-down box on newsworks.org/Delaware. We'll return with more of the program right after this.
Thanks for making WHYY where you go to know. Your support allows us to deliver truly original programs for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. First, Delaware's only dedicated weekly news magazine. On canvas, on stage, and behind the curtain. Friday Arts. Discover the region's hidden arts treasures. Make a pledge of $100 and you can request a pair of round-trip walk-on tickets for the Cape May Lewis Ferry. Call 1-888-345-9499 or visit whyy.org/support.
The online home for First is at whyy.org/first. We have past shows available right now. This show will be ready on Monday. You can also watch with Comcast On Demand. Find the Get Local button and click through to WHYY, where you can find all of our programs.
Rob Torno time once again. He visits us monthly via the pages of newsworks.org/Delaware. And since he has a focus on Delaware this month, you're hitting on violence in Wilmington. Seems like something we could talk about just about any time you come in, but it's really been a rough patch here in the city.
Yeah, I mean, Mayor Williams came in saying that he was going to be hard on crime and fix the problems, and obviously the problems are more complex than politicians ever want to admit. We're now on pace to have the most homicides this year, more than the last 3 years. It's a tough problem, and there's no easy solutions despite what everyone's saying.
And so in this week's cartoon, Caesar Rodney and his horse taking cover. It's a light spin on a very serious topic.
People live in this city, and people come to this city, so you have to address the problem. Otherwise, no one's going to care, and people are just going to avoid it. And we have a new police commissioner now, and we're going to do this community policing effort, but you really have to stick with it if you're going to make any positive change on the city.
Yeah, let's hope it's all what we're hoping for. And you have changing subjects. You have another cool project, a webcomic based on newsworks.org featuring the Jersey Shore. Tell us about this weekly webcomic. Well, a couple times a week.
Right, yeah. We publish it 3 times a week. My wife is from the shore. She writes it, and it's really supposed to be a love letter to the shore through these wacky family. They inherit their father's bed and breakfast, and they find that it's in disrepair because of Hurricane Sandy. So it's sort of Faulty Towers meets like the Jersey Shore, and it's a lot of fun. It's cool to do something that's not politics, and yeah, hopefully people like it.
And it's specifically based at the Jersey Shore, but really the themes are kind of universal to a lot of other places, even here in Delaware.
Yeah, I mean, Delaware has beaches. Delaware has things that were affected by Sandy. We have the tourists that, we love to hate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of universal, and everybody goes to the beach. And if you don't, I urge you to go to the beach. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, and we urge you to go to newsworks.org and check out Rob Torno and his work brought to life through the pages of newsworks.org/Delaware. You can follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Torno.
Coming up on First, a lesson in real life is taking place at Dover Air Force Base, and we get into the grooves of Jupiter records in our first experience.
After touring Dover Air Force Base's new Health and Wellness Center and seeing its state-of-the-art kitchen last year, the owner of a Dover bakery had an idea. Get the airmen to put down their weapons for spatulas and wooden spoons and teach them how to cook. On this night, airmen at Dover Air Force Base are learning how to prepare chicken enchiladas.
Tonight we have a guest chef. This dinner that they're making tonight, each one of them is going to go home with a pan of enchiladas, and they're actually going to spend probably less than $6 to make the whole dish.
Dawn Nickerson-Banez started Operation Dorm to Gorm this spring. The program puts service members living on base through basic training in the kitchen.
It's a great kitchen, and this is what caught my eye in the first place, was to see this kitchen and see it not being used.
Until now, every 2 weeks, a dozen or so students come together to learn something new.
Learn new recipes, just everything, simple recipes, complex recipes, everything from making a salsa to things like chicken with a lemon glaze.
Hi there. Banez, who owns Frankfurt Bakery and Deli in downtown Dover, says for many stationed at Dover Air Force Base, they've never had to cook for themselves.
We have airmen on that base that are 18 and 19 years old that literally graduated from high school, went to boot camp, and don't really have the home economic skills.
Like Airman First Class Monica Lambertson.
I wasn't into cooking because my mom was the one who always cooked, so she always provided our meals. When we got home, they were already ready for us.
But now Lambertson says she started cooking a lot more and saved money at the same time.
Instead of going out to eat, I'll just buy all the stuff and make it at home.
You can go buy a chicken for $5 and get 6 meals out of it. Chicken salad sandwich, chicken soup, grilled chicken breast, those kind of things. So if they plan ahead a little bit and do a little bit of preparation, it's very easy and inexpensive to eat well.
It's definitely fun. You get to learn new things. Even if you have experience cooking before, you can learn everything, how to handle a knife better, different measurements, and just how to spice up your cooking.
More than teaching service members how to cook, it's a way for Banez to give back.
I was a U.S. Navy corpsman for 8 years, so the military is very special, very near and dear to my heart. My father's a Marine, So I always will have a soft spot for the military, and I try to do whatever I can to support that effort.
The airmen don't pay a thing to participate in the class, which is offered to the entire base. In addition to chicken enchiladas, the students have also learned basic knife skills, how to break down a whole chicken, how to spruce up jar pasta sauce, and they even had a grilling session.
What's not to like about the Best of Delaware issue of Delaware Today? Lots of great photos of places we like to go and things we like to do. Rob Martinelli, publisher of Delaware Today, is here. We'll get into the details of the Best of Delaware event, but let's hit some of the highlights. Let's start off with food, Rob. Everyone likes to eat. Let's start off with Harry's Savoy Grill. They won in a number of categories.
They did. Harry's a great restaurant in North Wilmington, won for Best Restaurant in North Wilmington, as well as Best Wine List, Best Appetizers. So they took a number of awards away this year.
And I must agree, I love to go there. Downstate, Bon Appetit in Seaford.
Yes, French restaurant that wins perennially every year.
Okay.
Great restaurant in Seaford, Delaware.
What about best, there's even a best game category, best game dishes?
Get Best Game Dishes, yes, and that's Skipjack's up in upstate won this year.
Is that something new? Is that something hard you find to, I guess, judge?
We try to add some new categories every year. That was a new category for us this year, and the critics seem to all think that that was the best place.
Well, the one thing I love, with the Best of Delaware party, there will be a lot of those restaurants there so we can sample the food. Tell us a little about the event.
Well, it's a great event. It's next Thursday night, July 17th at 6 o'clock, and we get 50 to 60 of the best restaurants in the state. You get to sample their food. We have some great entertainment, and the whole thing is raises money for some very worthwhile charities. We have the Girl Scouts are a beneficiary this year, and the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation is a beneficiary this year.
Oh, awesome. Ronnie's Garden World, an editor's pick. Is that often hard to do, to pick one, especially when it comes to an editor's pick?
It's very tough to do. We have a group of editors or food writers and editorial people throughout the state, freelancers that get together, meet on a number of occasions to make their choices. And it's not easy. There are a lot of great places in this state, as you know, but including Best TV Personality.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely shocked by that one. I was having a crazy day, so when I got the phone call, I was just thrilled, and I'm still in shock. So, but let's talk about Reader's Pick. I was actually one of the Reader's Pick. Best Toy Store goes to Delaware Children's Museum. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was one of the surprising ones, I thought. The Delaware Children's Museum on the riverfront in Wilmington, and they won for Best Toy Store. You wouldn't think of them as a toy store, but they have a wonderful gift shop in their museum, and it has some great toys.
Somerville Manning Gallery also received a thumbs up from readers.
Yes, it's one of the leading galleries in Greenville. Has a lot of the traditional Brandywine artists there, and they won for Best Gallery.
When it comes to the voting process, tell us about that. When does it start? How does it end? What are you guys looking for?
It starts in February, and it runs for about a month and a half. We have a ballot in the magazine, and we also now have an online ballot. So we get all those votes, and literally thousands of votes come in between the ballot in the magazine and the online. And then an accounting company, Horty and Associates, compulates all the ballots, and they submit the winners to us.
Well, definitely a lot to see, so pick up your Delaware Today magazine. You can do so by going to any store. Rob Martinelli, publisher of Delaware Today, thank you so much for joining us as always.
Thank you for having me, Nikki.
Steve Zimmerman knows records. He's been working in record stores for over 2 decades now. In August, he opened his own store, Jupiter Records, in Wilmington. So can old technology like records and turntables really work in the digital age? First Experience provides the answer like a needle on a record.
I've worked in record stores for like the last 20 years. I owned a record store in Arizona for 5 years, and I just kind of wanted to have my own record site. A little bit more of a reflection on me, I think. Most of what's in the store was my own personal record collection, so there's just tons and tons of things, because I bought, as a collector, probably 50% of what's in the store right now. We carry all sorts of new and used records, other knickknackeries, and whatever else we can find that people who collect records would be interested in. It's probably a little crazy. It's no more crazy to me than working in a cube or, traveling or whatever it is. It's just a business. It's something I've done for 20 years, so I know it, and it seems reasonable to me. People are still interested in records, but now people want new records again. So there is a demand for it. We get, a lot of 20, 30, 40-year-olds. We get a lot of older than 40, 40, 50, 60 and up. We get parents bringing in their 10-year-olds, buying them a turntable and a pile of records. And they come for the atmosphere. Just a whole social experience coming to a record store. What's next? More records. We opened in August with about 8,000 or 9,000 records, and now we're up to about 15,000. So I'd like to see that number go up to about 20,000. When you buy an album, you can open it up, you get liner notes, you got cover art, you got inserts. You don't get those kind of things with downloads. I love music, I love people, and I like just flipping through records. With records, you're sitting on a couch or something with 3 or 4 other guys, and you're flipping records, talking, hanging out. Vinyl's a whole different experience.
Jupiter Records buys and sells records. They can get you up and running and spinning tunes for your friends in no time. Their selection is out of this world. See Jupiter Records out of this. To plan a visit or for more information, check them out on the web at recordsfromjupiter.com.
Should Wilmington save money at the expense of the fire department? It's not as easy to answer as you might think, and we'll explain that next week. Plus, a graduation ceremony that will really capture your attention. We'll show you on the next First.
And before we go, it's my duty once again to mention that one of my co-workers has been highlighted in Delaware Today magazine. Nichelle Polston is the Reader's Choice for Best Television Personality. Congratulations, Nichelle.
Yeah, congratulations. And it is great for First as well. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Mark Eichman and Nichelle Polston, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week.
Wilmington residents can now sign up for free emergency text and email alerts directly from the Wilmington Police Department. The department can now issue alerts which will simultaneously call landline phones, send text messages and email, and post to social media. The service is free for subscribers and registration is easy. Simply text your zip code to 888-777 or register online at nixle.com, where you can customize alert settings and choose to receive email and web alerts as well. With Nixle, you know.